Rest now, for God is working in your life. You don't need to see it, touch it, or understand it. You just need to believe it. That ache in your chest, that unanswered prayer, that mountain that refuses to move, it's not the end. It's not even the middle. It's the quiet hour before the breakthrough. When your strength is gone, when your plans collapse, when your spirit is weary, that is when God begins to move in ways unseen. Don't be fooled by silence. Don't be shaken by delay. Don't misread your suffering as absence. God is not ignoring you. God is not punishing you. God is positioning you. Too often we wrestle with burdens that are not ours to carry. We run ourselves into the ground trying to solve what only God can fix. We try to fight battles with human strength, forgetting that God never asked us to be the warrior, only the believer. We exhaust ourselves trying to prove something, trying to fix something, trying to make something happen. But listen carefully. When you've done all you can, when you've prayed, obeyed, stood firm, and trusted, God says, "Rest now, I am working." There is power in rest, not the kind of rest that comes from comfort, but the sacred rest that comes from trust. The kind of rest that says, even though I walk through the valley of shadows, I will not be afraid, for God walks with me. The kind of rest that says, though the fig tree does not blossom, though there be no fruit on the vine, still I will wait, for God is faithful. This kind of rest is not sleep, it is not idleness, it is not surrender to defeat, it is spiritual confidence. It is knowing that the hand of God never trembles. It is knowing that while you are still, God is active. While you wait, God is at work. God is not intimidated by your enemies. God is not confused by your circumstances. God is not limited by your resources. And God is not late. Every season of delay is part of a holy strategy. Every closed door is protection. Every detour is divine instruction. If only you could see what God is arranging behind the scenes, you would stop worrying this very moment. If you knew what traps God has dismantled on your behalf, you would fall on your knees in worship. But because you can't see it yet, you grow restless, you feel like nothing's happening, you start questioning the timing, the process, even the promise. But hear me now, God is never inactive. You may be standing still, but God is not. When you sleep, God does not. When you weep, God collects every tear. When you feel forgotten, God is crafting the next chapter. You are not abandoned. You are not overlooked. You are in the hands of the Almighty. What more secure place could you possibly be? We are a people obsessed with outcomes. We want to know what's next, how it will happen, and when. But God is a God of process, and sometimes the greatest test is not the challenge, it's the waiting. It's the not knowing. It's the silence that demands faith. Resting while God works means releasing your need to control. It means surrendering your obsession with answers. It means choosing to trust, even when everything in you screams for certainty. You see, real trust isn't proven when things are going your way. It's proven when nothing makes sense. It's forged in darkness, in confusion, in the wilderness. That's when God looks at you and says, "Now I see your faith." That's when the heavens open. Not because you fought harder, but because you rested deeper. When God works, He works completely. He doesn't patch things up. He rebuilds from the foundation. He doesn't answer your prayer halfway. He gives you more than you ask for. But He does it in His time, not yours, in His way, not yours. And your role is not to understand the how, but to stand firm in the who is in charge, who made the promise, who never fails. The moment you rest is the moment God begins to move faster. But we fight that rest. We fight it because we think rest means giving up. But in the kingdom of God, rest is warfare. Rest is resistance against the panic of the world. Rest is a declaration that says, I trust God more than my logic. I trust God more than my bank account. I trust God more than the news. I trust God more than my own understanding. There is a sacred rhythm to life, and God moves according to divine timing, not rushed, not delayed, perfect. And when God works, He works through ways you couldn't predict even if you tried. He will use people you never met. He will open doors you didn't knock on. He will create rivers in deserts, light in the deepest valley, and peace in the midst of your storm. But He'll do it while you rest. You may think resting is doing nothing, but it's not. Resting in God is an act of defiance against fear. It's standing still while chaos demands you move. It's saying, I will not panic. I will not break. I will not give up, because my trust is not in the visible. My hope is not in the seen. My strength is not in the flesh. My confidence is in God. How many times have you prayed and then taken the problem back into your own hands? How many times have you surrendered your burden only to carry it again 5 minutes later? Today, stop. Stop running. Stop calculating. Stop overthinking. Stop doubting. Rest now, because God is doing what only God can do. When you rest, you give God room to work. You clear the clutter of your mind. You make space for divine solutions. When you rest, you're not giving up on the dream. You're giving God permission to build it His way. You're saying, God, I trust you more than the work of my own hands. And God honors that kind of faith, that silent, still, unwavering belief in His plan. He sees you holding on when everything says let go. He sees you staying the course when quitting would be easier. He sees you worshiping through tears. That's what moves the heart of God, not your perfection, but your perseverance. There are angels dispatched on your behalf right now. There are answers on the way. There are doors preparing to open. But you must be still, you must remain calm, you must resist the urge to manipulate the outcome. If you interfere with the process, you may delay the promise. But if you wait on God, you will see miracles unfold before your very eyes. When God works, He aligns everything, not just the blessing, but your heart, not just the breakthrough, but your mindset, not just the provision, but your purpose. God is not just preparing it for you, He's preparing you for it. And sometimes the delay is not because the blessing isn't ready, it's because you aren't ready. And God loves you too much to give you something that will destroy you. So rest now. Rest because you've prayed. Rest because you've obeyed. Rest because God heard you. Rest because you are not alone. Rest because the storm is not your enemy. It's your training ground. Rest because the waiting is not empty, it's sacred. Rest because your future is already written. Rest because God is in control. The enemy wants you tired. He wants you anxious. He wants you to feel abandoned. But God says, come to me and I will give you rest. Not the rest of escape, but the rest of endurance. Not the rest of denial, but the rest of faith. The kind of rest that says, I know who holds my future. I know who fights for me. I know who works all things together for my good. So lay down your fear, lay down your questions, lay down your timelines, lay down your worry, lay down your assumptions, lay down your urgency, and take up faith, take up trust, take up patience, take up expectation, take up hope, because while you rest, God is moving mountains. While you rest, God is sending provision. While you rest, God is answering prayers you forgot you even prayed. You're not forgotten. You're not forsaken. You're not stuck. You're right where you need to be. in the arms of the Almighty, in the palm of His hand, under His watchful eye, covered by His mercy, surrounded by His grace, and guided by His wisdom. So rest now. Rest fully, rest deeply, because when you open your eyes again, everything will have changed. You'll see that the pain had a purpose. The delay was divine. The silence was sacred, and the waiting was worth it. You'll realize that while you were still, God was moving heaven and earth for your good. You'll understand that when you stopped striving, God started building. When you stopped pushing, God started providing. When you stopped panicking, God started preparing. This is the season where God is working while you wait. So don't rush it. Don't fight it. Don't question it. Embrace it. Rest in it. Trust in it, because God never sleeps, never stumbles, never slips. He is orchestrating, organizing, and overseeing every detail of your destiny. And His timing is flawless. When you place your trust in God and choose to rest, you're not stepping away from action, you're stepping into divine alignment. This is where power lives. This is where clarity forms. This is where the fire of purpose gets reignited. Too many of you are trying to carry what God already lifted. You pace the floor at night, not realizing that the courtroom of heaven has already ruled in your favor. Whether you panic over bills, over relationships, over sickness, not knowing that God has already gone before you and made a way where there was none. But here's the truth. If your heart is not still, you will miss the whisper of direction. You will miss the hand of God working through the quiet. There is a holy stillness that comes only from trusting God completely. That stillness is not passive. It's powerful. It doesn't mean you stop moving in obedience. It means you stop forcing what God has not released. It means you stop trying to open doors God has locked for your protection. It means you stop clinging to people God has removed from your life. That kind of rest is a spiritual declaration. I am not my own provider, not my own protector, not my own savior. God is all of that and more. Look around you. Everything in this world is shouting, hurry, strive, achieve. But the voice of God says, be still and know. Be still and know. Not guess, not assume, not wish. Know that God is in control. Know that every detail of your life is under divine supervision. Know that no tear you've shed is wasted, no sacrifice you've made is forgotten, and no pain you've endured is meaningless. God is not idle. God is intentional. You see, rest doesn't mean escape. It doesn't mean pretending the pain isn't real. It doesn't mean turning your back on the storm. It means standing in the storm with peace in your heart because you know who commands the wind. Rest means refusing to let the noise of your surroundings drown out the truth of God's promise. It means hearing a negative report and still saying God is working. It means watching the clock tick without fear because God doesn't work by human deadline. Many people pray for breakthrough but never rest long enough to receive it. You want an answer, but your soul is too restless to hear it. You want a miracle, but you won't wait long enough to witness it. And God is saying, stop moving, stop worrying, stop fighting me, rest, and let me show you what I can do. God does not need your anxiety. He does not require your panic to operate in power. What God desires is your surrender, heart-deep, soul-anchored, fear-defying surrender. The kind of surrender that says, even if I don't see the path, I trust the hand that guides me. That is what brings peace in the middle of pressure. That is what brings strength when your own strength is gone. That is where rest becomes revelation. That is where faith begins to breathe. Don't confuse rest with complacency. Rest is a spiritual posture. It is you saying to the unseen world, I trust God more than I trust my senses. That's when everything changes. That's when the heavens begin to open. That's when provision meets preparation. That's when the answer comes, not because you figured it out, but because you rested in faith and allowed God to show Himself strong. And hear this, the greatest attacks often come right before the greatest breakthroughs. The weariness you feel isn't a sign that God has left. It's a sign that something is shifting in the Spirit. The enemy cannot stop what God has ordained, so he tries to exhaust you into forfeiting it. But today you take your ground back through rest. You don't need to shout louder. You don't need to strive harder. You need to stand still and believe deeper. You need to wrap your soul in stillness and say, God, I am here and I trust you. I don't need all the answers. I just need to stay near to you. There is more happening in your life than what you can see. What looks like delay is actually divine design. What feels like emptiness is sacred preparation. God is not a God of chaos. He is not random. He is not surprised by your circumstances. Long before you felt the pressure, God crafted the solution. Long before you walked into the wilderness, God placed an oasis in the path. And long before the trial, God wrote your victory. So when your thoughts race, when fear tries to strangle your faith, when everything around you looks like it's falling apart, speak to your soul and say, rest. God is working. Not only is God working, He is working all things together for your good, even the things that hurt, even the things that confused you, even the doors that shut and the people who left. Nothing escapes the reach of God. Not the betrayal, not the sickness, not the delay, not the failure, nothing. God can use broken pieces and make a masterpiece. God can take what the enemy meant for evil and turn it into your testimony. God can allow you to walk through fire and come out without a trace of smoke. But first you must rest in that truth, because when you rest, God reveals. When you rest, God realigns your perspective, so that what once scared you now strengthens you. You can't build a future on anxiety. You can't hear divine direction in the noise of fear. You can't receive peace when your spirit is filled with panic. So lay it down. Every worry, every plan, every deadline, every disappointment, and say, God, I give this to you. Say it with your lips. Say it with your actions. Say it with your silence. Let your rest be your offering. Let your stillness be your worship. Let your trust be your testimony. And watch what God does. Watch how doors open that you never expected. Watch how strength rises when you should have fainted. Watch how peace guards your heart when others collapse. Watch how God takes your rest and turns it into results. You may feel weak right now. You may feel forgotten. But weakness is the platform for God's strength. Emptiness is the vessel He fills. Confusion is the canvas He paints miracles on. And when you feel you have nothing left, that's when God says, now I can show you who I am. Resting in God is not defeat, it's deliverance. It's the choice to stop living by sight and start living by faith. It's the deep, sacred courage to say, God, I don't see the way, but I trust you to lead. I don't understand the delay, but I trust your plan. I don't feel strong, but I trust your strength. That is where miracles happen. That is where healing begins. That is where restoration is birthed. There are moments in your life when you feel like everything is falling apart. You look around and wonder, where is God in all of this? The silence feels heavy, the days feel longer, the nights echo with your questions. But do not be deceived by how things appear. God's silence is not absence. God's stillness is not neglect. God's delay is not denial. In fact, it is in the quietest moments that God often does His deepest work. You may not feel the ground shifting, but beneath the surface, God is building roots of strength, rivers of wisdom, and foundations of purpose. The seed grows in darkness before it ever breaks the soil, and so must you. God is not obligated to explain the details of your journey. He is not bound to show you every step in advance. What He requires is your trust, not conditional trust, not partial trust, but full surrendered trust that says, even if I don't understand it, I will walk in peace, knowing that God is leading me. That kind of faith honors God. That kind of rest draws His favor. That kind of obedience invites blessings that you never imagined. Sometimes God removes your strength on purpose, not to harm you, but to teach you that His strength is all you need. Sometimes God allows you to feel the weight of waiting so that your heart detaches from the world and anchors itself fully in Him. And when that happens, when your soul stops depending on the external and begins relying solely on the eternal, that is when peace flows. That is when clarity comes. That is when purpose ignites. Not because your situation changed, but because your spirit aligned with God. You must learn to stop running from discomfort. Stop cursing the wilderness. Stop fearing the unknown. Because it is in those places, those sacred, silent, often painful places, that God reveals who you are and what He has planned for you. You're not being punished, you're being purified. You're not being rejected, you're being redirected. You're not being overlooked, you're being overhauled. And God is doing it all while you wait, while you rest, while you surrender. Rest is not laziness, rest is warfare. Rest says to the enemy, I will not be moved by what I see. I will not be shaken by delay. I will not be deceived by fear. I will stand still and know that my God reigns. That kind of rest carries the sound of victory. That kind of rest is louder than shouting, stronger than striving, deeper than desperation. It is the unshakable, anchored belief that God's word is true, His plan is perfect, and His timing is never wrong. When God says He is working, He means every word. Not a single detail escapes His gaze. Not a single moment is wasted. What you call confusion, God calls construction. What you call delay, God calls development. And while you may feel like you're in a holding pattern, God is orchestrating a divine sequence of events that will unfold in perfect harmony. You are not stuck. You are not forgotten. You are being shaped. Rest now, not because you've done everything right, but because God's mercy covers you even when you fail. Rest now, not because the future is clear, but because the one who holds it is trustworthy. Rest now, not because you don't care, but because you care enough to let God take the lead. You are not created to carry burdens that only God can bear. You are not designed to figure it all out on your own. You were made to walk with God, to depend on Him, to rest in His promises, even when the storm rages. And make no mistake, there will be storms. There will be moments when it seems like the wind is against you, the waves are too high, and the sky too dark. But even in that darkness, God is present. Even in the chaos, God is in control. Rest does not remove the storm, it changes how you face it. Rest allows you to walk through it without fear, knowing that God is with you. That even if the storm takes everything around you, it cannot take what God has placed within you. Some of you have been praying for change, but you're still clinging to old patterns. You've been crying out for breakthrough, but you refuse to release your grip on what's familiar. Let go. Let God handle what you cannot. Release the outcome. Release the need to be in control. Release the fear that if you rest, things will fall apart. Rest is not surrendering to defeat, it's surrendering to divine strength. When you rest in God, you are making room for miracles. Do not underestimate the value of hidden seasons. These are the seasons where God hides you, not to punish, but to prepare. Where He keeps you behind the scenes, not to forget you, but to strengthen you. He keeps you in waiting, not to waste your time, but to reveal His time. What you call delay is a divine detour around destruction. What you call loneliness is a sacred invitation to intimacy with God. What you call failure is simply the falling away of things that could not go with you into the next chapter of your life. But the moment you stop fighting the process is the moment you begin to see the hand of God more clearly. Your rest becomes revelation, your silence becomes strength, your patience becomes power. When you stop trying to force doors open, God opens them without effort. When you stop manipulating outcomes, God makes the path straight before you. When you stop panicking and start praying, God speaks peace into your chaos. So do not measure God's movement by your feelings. Do not mistake inactivity for ineffectiveness. God is not obligated to show you His methods. He is only asking you to trust His intentions. And His intentions are always good, always wise, always perfect. What you see as a pause, God sees as preparation. What you feel as pressure, God uses for purpose. And though your heart may be tired, your mind clouded, your body weak, your spirit, if anchored in God, can remain unshaken. Rest is not a break from faith. It is the proof of faith. It is saying, I believe God is moving even when I do not see it. I believe God is faithful even when I do not feel it. I believe God is faithful even when the evidence is lacking. This kind of rest defies logic. It confuses the world. It silences the accuser. Because while others panic, you have peace. While others give up, you stand firm. While others run in every direction, you wait in stillness. That is the mark of someone who knows their God. Let the world chase answers. Let others chase status, control, applause, validation. But as for you, rest. Let them wonder why you are so calm in the storm. Let them ask how you are still smiling when all seems lost. And when they ask, you tell them, it's not because I have it all figured out. It's because God is working. And I trust Him more than I trust my circumstances. When your soul finally chooses to rest, truly rest in the presence and power of God, that is when your spiritual eyes begin to open. You begin to see that what you once thought was delay was actually divine design. What you thought was rejection was really protection. What you assumed was the end was only the beginning of something far greater than you had planned. And all of it was being orchestrated by God while you wrestled, while you cried, while you questioned, while you waited. He was never far. He was never idle. He was never late. Resting in God is not a passive state. It is a posture of power. It means your heart is so rooted in trust that fear cannot take hold. It means your mind is so surrendered that overthinking has no room to grow. It means your spirit is so aligned with God that the noise of the world cannot shake your peace. Resting is not weakness, it is spiritual strength at its highest. Because anyone can fight, anyone can panic, anyone can try to take control. But it takes faith to be still. It takes courage to wait. It takes devotion to trust the unseen hand of God when all you have is a whisper of His promise. There is a deeper rest than physical sleep, and that rest only comes when you release the weight of your own will. As long as you are clinging to how you want things to go, how you think it should unfold, how you expect it to happen, you will be restless. But when you say, God, I release the outcome, you are stepping into divine rest. It is not a surrender to fate. It is an alignment with destiny. The destiny God already wrote for you before you took your first breath. There is a reason God calls His people to stillness before He moves. He does not rush transformation. He prepares it. He sets things in order. He examines the heart. He removes distractions. He breaks strongholds. And often, the waiting is not because God is not ready. It is because you are being prepared. God is doing something inside you before He releases what is outside of you. The maturity you gain in waiting will be the wisdom you need when the door finally opens. So don't just wait, grow while you wait, strengthen while you rest, listen while you are still. You may feel like nothing is changing, but rest assured, God is never still without purpose. Every moment of silence is filled with intention. God uses the quiet to mold your character. God uses the pause to test your patience. God uses the unanswered moments to deepen your dependence. And that is the kind of faith God honors. Not shallow belief, not conditional trust, but a deep, unwavering confidence that rests in His sovereignty. Even when life feels uncertain, rest means letting go of timelines. Rest means refusing to compare your journey with anyone else's. Rest means no longer forcing the pieces to fit where God has said, not yet. And when you rest in God, you give Him room to do what only He can do. You step back from the driver's seat and say, lead me, guide me, show me. And you mean it, not just with words, but with your silence, with your stillness, with your surrender. There is something sacred about waiting on God. It refines you. It breaks pride. It reveals what your faith is really made of. It exposes the noise you've mistaken for guidance. And when all else is stripped away, when your plans have failed, when your resources run dry, when your strength is gone, then you realize what has always been true: God alone is enough. That revelation is the beginning of real rest, because when you know that God is enough, you stop striving to prove yourself. You stop panicking when the outcome is unclear. You stop living in fear of what might happen. And you start living in the peace of what God has promised. The greatest breakthroughs are often birthed from the greatest stillness, not when you're shouting for attention, but when you're resting in quiet confidence. Not when you're striving to be seen, but when you're trusting that God sees you already. Not when you're forcing a door open, but when you're waiting for God to open the right one. Because a door you force open may bring temporary satisfaction, but it will lack divine stability. But a door God opens cannot be closed by man. It comes with His timing, His favor, His protection, and His provision. So trust in the wisdom of God. Trust that what He withholds for a reason. Trust that if something is not happening yet, there is something you cannot yet see. And perhaps, just perhaps, what's being worked out in the silence is greater than what you would have settled for in the noise. Rest not because your situation is easy, but because your God is mighty. Rest not because the answer is visible, but because the answer is in the hands of the one who sees the end from the beginning. There is a sacred authority that rises in the heart of a person who has truly learned to rest in God. That rest is not merely about stepping away from action. It is stepping into divine order. It is knowing that chaos does not control your destiny. God does. When your soul reaches that holy stillness, a fire begins to burn that no storm can put out. You no longer flinch at sudden bad news. You no longer stagger under pressure. You no longer chase after things that do not carry the seal of God. Instead, you walk with purpose, speak with wisdom, and live with peace, because you know your life is under the sovereign care of the Almighty. And what does it mean to live under that care? It means you stop looking for signs to feel safe. It means your faith is not based on feelings, but on the unshakable truth that God is always working, always watching, always guiding. You stop second-guessing every twist and turn, and you begin to realize that even when you cannot see it, God's hand is moving through every detail. He is in the slow moments, He is in the closed doors, He is in the waiting, He is even in the pain, because God wastes nothing. What you thought would break you is the very thing He will use to bless you. Let me tell you this with a voice of fire and conviction. When you rest in God, you take the position of spiritual maturity. That is not weakness, that is mastery. A child panics when things don't go their way. A child demands immediate answers. But the mature soul says, I may not understand this now, but I trust the one who does. And that, my friend, is the highest form of strength, when your peace does not depend on your situation, but stands firm in your revelation of who God is. Rest is not for the passive. It is for the powerful. It is for those who have walked through the fire and chosen to trust God anyway. It is for those who have heard 100 lies in their mind but still choose to believe the truth in their spirit. It is for those who have watched people walk away, opportunities disappear, plans fail, but have not let bitterness take root in their heart. It is for the ones who say, I don't need to prove anything, because God is proving Himself through me every single day. And how does God prove Himself? Not always with thunder, not always with lightning, not always with dramatic miracles in the open. Sometimes He proves Himself in the quiet, in the way you survived what was meant to destroy you, in the peace that makes no sense to those watching, in the way your steps are ordered without you even knowing how. God proves Himself through your endurance, your resilience, your quiet obedience, your unseen prayers, your unwavering rest. There's a deep holiness in choosing rest when everything inside you wants to act out of fear. The world will tell you to hustle harder, move faster, fix it yourself. But God says, wait on me. I am building something in you first. And when you honor that, when you wait without complaining, when you rest without doubting, you become dangerous to the enemy. Because a person who trusts God cannot be manipulated by fear. A person who rests in God cannot be controlled by chaos. Do not underestimate the value of what you're going through right now. God is refining your vision. He is stretching your faith. He is stripping away false dependencies. He is removing idols you didn't even realize you had. He is making you into someone who no longer needs external validation because you've learned to rest in divine approval. He is growing your roots so deep that when the winds blow, you will not be moved. And understand this, not every delay is meant to frustrate you. Some delays are divine shields. What you thought you needed may have been a trap. What you begged for might have broken you. What you envied in someone else's life might have destroyed you had it come to you prematurely. But because you rested, because you did not force what was not sent by God, you are protected, you are preserved, you are in position. Let the world call it foolishness, but you call it faith. The same way a farmer does not dig up the seed every day to check its progress, so too must you trust that what God planted in you will come to pass. You don't have to understand the how. You don't have to control the when. You only have to rest in the who. Who is in charge? Who is your provider? Who sees all and knows all and never makes mistakes? So lift your eyes. Wipe your tears. Quiet your heart. Not because the problem disappeared, but because the problem no longer controls your peace. You have handed it over to the only one who knows the end from the beginning. You have released your will into the will of the one who cannot fail. And when you do that, truly do that, you will feel a peace that cannot be explained by logic or reason. It's a peace that says, come what may, I am held, I am guided, I am watched over. Some of you are in a season where you feel like nothing is changing. You pray, but the heavens feel silent. You move forward, but every door seems shut. You give your best, but no fruit appears. Listen to me now. This is not punishment. This is preparation. God is not ignoring you. He is refining you. He is teaching you to hear the quiet nudge, to move with the wind of wisdom, to discern the difference between noise and truth. If God allowed everything you wanted to come when you wanted it, you would be unprepared. You would be overwhelmed. You would mishandle the very thing He meant to bless you, so instead, He makes you wait. He says, rest. Let me shape your character before I elevate your calling. Let me build your faith before I bring the harvest. Let me clear the distractions before I reveal the next step. And when you've waited, when you've rested, when you've trusted, even when it didn't make sense, then comes the breakthrough, not the kind the world gives, not something fleeting or shallow, but a breakthrough that runs deep, a peace that lasts, a joy that's unshaken, a victory that glorifies God alone. Rest is not something you earn. It is a gift from God, but you must be willing to receive it. You must be willing to release the weight. You must be willing to say, enough striving, enough stress, enough trying to do God's job for Him. He does not need your fear. He needs your faith. He does not need your control. He needs your surrender. So tonight, when your thoughts begin to race, when the questions come back, when doubt tries to grip your soul, you speak these words: God is working. I don't need to know how. I don't need to see when. I just need to trust who. That is rest. That is power. That is your calling. And if you can hold on to that, if you can root yourself in that kind of trust, nothing can stop what God has prepared for you, because you will not be led by emotion. You will not be thrown off course by delay. You will not settle for what is easy when God is preparing what is eternal. You will walk with peace. You will speak with wisdom. You will wait with purpose, and you will rest, not because the journey is over, but because the one guiding you is faithful. You will not be called upon to do the good work, but because the one guiding you is faithful. Rest now. Let your spirit find stillness in the truth that God is not done. Not with your life, not with your calling, not with your future. He is working even now in ways you cannot see, in places you do not know, behind doors you never expected. And when the time is right, He will reveal what He has been building all along. Until then, rest. God is working in your life. So now, in the quiet of your soul, I call you to rise, not in the way the world teaches, but in the way God commands. Rise in faith. Rise in trust. Rise in rest. Look at your life with honest eyes. Look at the burdens you've been carrying, the fears that have wrapped themselves around your mind, the wounds you've tried to hide. And now ask yourself this: have I truly placed it all in God's hands? Or have I been holding on, trying to control what only God can redeem? This is your moment to let go of every weight, every lie, every shadow of doubt that has kept your heart restless. Stop running from the silence. Stop fearing the stillness. For it is in that stillness that God whispers the loudest. It is in that silence that God does His deepest healing. And it is in that rest that your spirit will finally breathe. You were not created to walk alone. You were not created to fight every battle in your own strength. God has always been there. In every tear you've cried behind closed doors, in every battle you didn't have the words to pray for, in every silent night where you questioned your worth, God was working. And He's still working. Not because you've done everything right, but because His mercy is greater than your mistake. His power is greater than your weakness. His wisdom is deeper than your confusion. Let this be the turning point where your heart returns fully to God. Let this be the hour where your soul no longer looks to the world for peace, but to God alone. Build your days on truth. Guard your thoughts with discipline. Align your steps with obedience. And above all, rest in the knowledge that God is not finished with you. The process is not proof of absence. It is the evidence of divine intention. The wait is not wasted. The pain is not pointless. The silence is not abandonment. You are being shaped for something greater, something eternal, something that glorifies God through every breath you take. So walk forward, not in anxiety, but in assurance. Lay your head down at night, not in fear, but in faith. Speak to your future, not with trembling lips, but with bold confidence. God is with me. God is guiding me. God is working in me. And when the days feel heavy, when the night grows long, when the answers don't come and the road feels unclear, don't run, don't strive, don't collapse under pressure. Just rest, stand still, breathe deep, remember who your God is. The one who formed the heavens does not forget his creation. The one who parts seas and calms storms does not ignore the cries of a weary heart. The one who writes your story has already prepared the ending. And it is good. So go now, not with fear, but with fire, not with doubt, but with direction, not with worry, but with worship. Let your life be the proof that resting in God is not weakness, it is power, it is trust, it is surrender, and it is where victory begins. Rest now, not because everything is perfect, but because God